Let's start with a quote that's been tossed around like gospel. Allegedly, Stephen King said, "Writing isn't about making money or getting famous, it's about enriching lives." Beautiful sentiment, right? Or maybe King is spinning another yarn and being condescending, since he is a famous writer with a net worth of about $500 million. But let's be honest, if writing was purely about enrichment, half the world's novelists wouldn't have agents and book tours or dreams of Netflix adaptations. Most don't sit at their desk at midnight pounding coffee, rewriting 10 times just to enrich lives. You do it because you want your story to matter. And yes, you do want it seen. Today, we're pulling back the curtain about that noble myth. We'll look at well known writers who openly chased fame and fortune and enriched lives along the way. I'm D.L. Hughes from VelocityWriting.com. By the end of this video, you'll know how to align your writing motives so that you don't sabotage your creativity or your career. Hey, if you get value from this, please like, comment, and share. Subscribe if you're not already. Let's look at the first truth bomb. The fame fever never dies. We want to be noticed and liked. We want to make a difference at home, work, or in society. Yeah, we do want to be remembered. You know, in the 1880s, Charles Dickens wasn't just writing, he was performing. He toured like a rock star, earning today's equivalent of millions of dollars through public readings. He cared deeply about social justice, but he also cared about selling out the theaters where he spoke. And Mark Twain, same deal. His humor and moral insight were wrapped in a performer's grin. He said he wrote because it paid, and he meant it. Twain lived lavishly, went bankrupt, then did a global speaking tour to make it all better. Here's the point. Even the so-called classic authors played the fame game. They didn't apologize for wanting an audience. And here's the main point. Many modern writers feel guilty about wanting attention, as if caring about royalties makes you shallow. It doesn't make you shallow. Money is a feedback signal. It means your work reached people deeply enough for them to trade some real value, their cash, for it. Now, here's the twist. When money becomes the only validation, your creative compass goes haywire. You start chasing trends, not truth. And the market always knows when your heart's missing from the page. So, how do you write authentically and profitably? Well, the 20th century sellout myth. When did we decide that wanting money for your art made you a sellout? Well, it became a moral issue when some aspects of society began to romanticize artistic pursuits over financial success. Humans have always chased fame, but the notion of the starving artist came into vogue at a particular time. Writers like Wordsworth and Byron pushed the belief that true art came from the soul and not from commerce. The selling out label exploded during the 1960s when the counterculture framed itself against mainstream capitalism. Yet in the early 20th century, F. Scott Fitzgerald admitted he wrote short stories mostly to pay his bills, and then he used the money to buy time to write his novels like The Great Gatsby. He wasn't conflicted about it. He saw writing for cash as fuel for writing what mattered to him. By mid-century, authors like Truman Capote and Norman Mailer were open about chasing celebrity. Capote threw parties to stay in the headlines. Mailer said fame itself was part of the creative process. Now, here's the deeper insight: writing for money isn't corruptions, it's exchange. The problem isn't ambition, it's attachment. When you tie your identity to the market's approval, you lose the inner voice that made you interesting in the first place. I once coached a thriller author who wrote 5 unpublished novels while refusing to write commercial trash. Finally, she blended her literary depth with genre pacing, and that 6th book sold thousands of copies, not because she sold out, but because she met readers halfway. Writing for money can make you more generous if you view success as proof that your ideas matter to others. But what about the other side? What happens when writing is purely altruistic? The saintly, starving artist's lie. Fast forward to the 21st century. We're drowning in social media posts from writers saying, I don't care about sales, I just want to help people. Well, that sounds noble, but often it's fear wearing a halo. Fear of rejection, fear of commerce, fear of failure is the likely motive for that kind of talk. Look at George Orwell. He wrote 1984. He was an idealist who wanted to change minds. Yes, but he also meticulously tracked his book sales. He wanted readers. He wanted reach. Yeah, he wanted the money too. And sadly, he died in 1950 with a net worth of equivalent to only about $700,000. And his biggest book, 1984, the one that has radically influenced society, hadn't gained its sensational popularity before he died. That book had a message and sold millions. Here's the heart of the matter. Writing for art and writing for money are not opposites. They're partners in tension. One gives depth, the other gives reach. If you confuse those drives together, you become unstoppable. You care deeply about your message, and you're smart enough to package it for a world that rewards the attention. Here's your challenge for this week. Write a page for your heart, something raw and unfiltered. Then write a page for your market, something that informs or inspires or entertains, something significant enough that people see the value and are willing to buy. Now find the overlap. That's the money and meaning zone that you want to seek in all your writing. Hey, drop a comment. Do you lean more toward art or ambition? Be honest, no guilt allowed. Look, writing isn't sainthood. It's a creative business. You can care about your readers and royalties. Dickens did, Twain did, Fitzgerald did. So forget the false purity test. Write to enrich lives, including your own. Because when your words change you, they'll change others too. This next video will keep your writing momentum alive. Have a great writing day.